So, I'm a 24-year-old male. I lived on my own for about 2 years now. I have a very small bungalow that I'm able to pretty comfortably afford. In this bungalow, I have an attic area. At a guess, I'd say it's about 5 by 5 meters in size, and you can only really stand in there in the very center. Anyway, I work the night shift at a factory. I basically just sit on my phone all night, so I usually get in around about 8 a.m. I was coming home last Thursday during a heavy storm, and I got into the house and just went to sleep. I woke up and I went on my phone and saw that I was so tired that I didn't even check my notifications. I have a Ring camera outside my door, which shows me anyone who would have come into my room. I saw that it had been tripped at 7:42 a.m. I got into the house at around 8:15 a.m. I checked the video and saw that it was a man. He was pressed right up the door and was fumbling around with the handle. He did this for about 10 seconds until he spotted the camera. Once he did, he very quickly scooted away. This unsettled me, but didn't entirely creep me out or anything. I got up to go make some food and discovered something in my kitchen. My back window was open. I of course instantly began having the thoughts of a home intruder, but slowly chilled out as I convinced myself that I had left it open. The rest of the day consisted of this, just noticing small things that didn't seem right and scaring myself. All up until a point, I leave for the shift at 10 p.m. and was watching some TV at 9 o'clock-ish. I spotted something that made my heart leap into my throat. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see it. My attic entrance was slowly being slid open. I can so vividly remember that I began questioning my sanity. Surely I was just hallucinating or something. I looked over at it and absolutely saw something that made me so much more scared. I saw fingers wrap around the hatch and begin moving it more. I didn't know what to do. I could feel the panic beginning to really get to me. I wasn't sure if I should leave the house and call the police or if I should try and yell at whoever was up there. I began dialing 911 and ran to my bedroom where I could lock the door. As soon as I began running, I heard the hatchet get almost turned off with the speed they moved it, and I arrived at my bedroom door. I looked down the corridor and watched for a second, seeing only a little slice of the blackness up in my attic, and I saw the human hands still holding onto the sides of my ceiling. I yelled, "Whoever is there, I'm calling the police, and I have a gun. By the way, I don't own a gun. If you take a step out of there, I will shoot you." The adrenaline was really making my hands and voice shake, but I tried sounding as tough as I could. Then, I saw something that I truly do not think I will ever forget. The hand slipped back into the dark, and then he dropped it down. I slammed my door shut and locked it as quickly as I could. The call went through, and I was able to get on the line with the police, and they dispatched officers to my house. I told them I didn't know if the man was armed or not, and the dispatcher told me to stay on the line. I heard the man walking up to my door and rattling the door handle. He seemingly went through my cupboards in my kitchen, as I heard a lot of commotion in there. Truth be told, I don't know why he stayed. I would have just left the house, but he stayed right up until the police came and arrested him. Apparently, he was a homeless man and was armed with a knife from my kitchen, and had recently been seen in the area trying to get into other homes. Truth be told, I'm very frightened to sleep still. I now sleep with my bedroom door locked and all of my windows closed. I also sleep with a knife under my pillow. I know that this is unlikely to ever happen again, but I just cannot forget the way he dropped down from my attic. That's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I feel like if I write it down like this, it feels less like a real thing and more just like a story. My wife went to Atlanta to visit her folks and brought the baby with her. Grandma and Grandpa are stoked to have time with their grandson, and I get to play Diablo 3 all week, and everybody wins. The wife only asked that I take care of a few things around the house. Namely, she wanted the bedroom painted. So, last night around 1, after several hours of fighting off demons and zombies and various other minions of hell, I decided to prep for painting before I go to bed, remove the dresser drawers, nightstand, and lamp out of the bedroom, and head out to the garage. The garage, by the way, is still a complete mess. I've had the house for 4 months now. I just never got around to fixing up what the foreclose process did to that section of the house. I dig through some stuff to get the brushes, paint, cans, and trays out. Then, I hear it. It was faint at first, but it was definitely coming from the attic. It sounded like crying. I look up and the door to the attic is hanging down ever so slightly. I had been worried about squirrels getting in there since we moved in, so I decided to investigate. The door drops down with a sudden and rather loud slam. My dog gets pissed off and scared by this and decides to charge into the garage barking. Only he doesn't make it the whole way. I hear him scamper from the living room to the laundry room. But when he gets to the doorway between the laundry room and the garage, he slams on the brakes. Now this little guy is a Boston Terrier, pug mutt that I rescued, so he is by no means a furious beast. But I have never seen him scared. He proceeds to piss the floor and shake violently. "Benny, what are you doing?" I'm not really mad at him, but I probably yelled louder than I should have. He looks up at me with fear in his eyes and keeps messing with the floor. I pick him up and take him into the living room, grab a towel, and start to wipe up the mess. He slowly and apprehensively follows me back into the laundry room. I walk back into the garage with the hockey stick and flashlight. He stayed in the doorway again and whined at me, imploring me not to go up. I don't know what I expected to see, a raccoon? But what I saw froze me in my tracks. I had only made it 2 steps up the ladder, barely sticking my head into the attic, when I saw her, clear as day. There was a girl in my attic, no older than 6 years of age. She sat in a fetal position in the corner of my attic. Her head was buried into her knees, and she rocked herself slowly, back and forth. She wore a long t-shirt that I assume was her pajamas. It looked tattered with age. She was whispering quietly to herself. I probably wouldn't be able to even recognize the sound, if not for the fact that I stopped dead in my tracks, holding my breath, my heartbeat echoing in my skull. After what seemed like forever, she looked up at me, and our eyes met. Her eyes had deep bags, as she had been crying for years without sleep. "I'm so hungry." And with that, she was gone. No, she didn't disappear in a puff or smoke or anything. Just 1 second, there she was, and the next, she wasn't. It was as if I was watching a movie, and it simply jumped from one frame to the next. I'm not really sure what I saw, but I can only assume it was a ghost. My senses slowly came back to me, and I proceeded to tear the hell out of there. Benny and I ran into the bathroom, slammed, and locked the door. I sat in my room with all the lights on for about an hour. I was almost ready to scope out the situation when I heard her start crying again. It was very soft. I don't know how, but I could sense that she was actively trying to cry quietly. It was almost as if she was embarrassed and didn't want to be heard. Her words, "I'm so hungry," reverberated in my head. I could almost hear her say it. It was as if she was talking to me in my head. I didn't feel scared. I got out of bed. Benny decided to continue to hide under the covers, and I went into the kitchen. I made a small bowl of Easy Mac. I poured a glass of milk. I walked into the garage. I flicked on the garage light and was greeted by silence. I already felt foolish, but I seemed even more foolish to leave the food on the floor. So I flipped the hamper upside down and made a makeshift table. I left the food on the hamper in the middle of the garage, like some sort of preschool offering. I left the garage light on and slowly backed out to the laundry room doorway. I honestly expected to see her tiny malnourished frame climb down the ladder that I had left open. But after a few minutes, I started to think how ridiculous I was being. I was sleep deprived and overstressed from too much Diablo and work. I could hear Benny crying and immediately felt bad for scaring him so badly. I went back to the bedroom and tried to soothe him. But it turns out I didn't have to. When I got there, he was wagging and seemed like his old self. I can't explain it, but the house felt warmer, less burden. I don't know. I was gone maybe 2 minutes, but when I got back to the garage, the food was gone. I mean, gone. The bowl was licked clean. I stared at it, dumbfounded, and took the dishes back to the kitchen and put them in the sink. I didn't get much sleep that night. In my dreams, I could see her. She thanked me for the food and asked for cookies, dolls, and chocolate milk instead of regular milk. On the way home from work today, I picked up some Chips Ahoy, more Easy Mac, chocolate syrup, and some cheap Barbie knockoff. I put them in the garage, and when I got back from walking Benny, I returned to a similar scene. Cookies, decimated, no crumbs. Easy Mac gone, bowl licked clean, but the doll was missing. I know a lot of stories end with a dramatic twist or a shocking revelation, but I don't have one for you guys. I don't hear her crying. I don't hear anything from the attic, but I know she's happy. I can't explain how, but I know it. down to my bones. I'm equally as sure that she'll talk to me again in my dreams tonight. My concern right now is how I explain to my wife that our family just got a little bigger. I've never been a religious person. The few times I've ever gone to church, it was with my grandma, and it mostly just became a bonding experience for us because I know she likes it when I show interest in her hobbies and beliefs. But that being said, I'll be damned if I didn't start praying to something that night. As a teenage girl, there are a few things you really grow to appreciate after a while. Car privileges and getting to be home alone on the weekends. This story happened while I was at home alone one Friday night in December. Lights off, popcorn, scary movies, and ice cream. It was my literal definition of relaxation, and my parents were both out for the night. I was sitting on the couch watching my movie with my two cats when I started hearing things. It was either raining or snowing that night because I heard the distinct sound of water or something hitting the roof. This was fine by me. In fact, I liked the rain. I found it relaxing, so I laid back down and continued watching my movie. I started smelling something odd not too long after that, and I ended up getting up and spraying some air freshener, but I still felt lightheaded and couldn't place where that smell was coming from. I even checked the oven and fireplace in case the gas pellets were on, but they were fine. So I laid down on the couch and started to soothe my headache with water and aspirin. It was only after a few minutes that I started hearing the thumping coming from the back bedrooms. I shot up from where I had laid down, my head swimming. I paused the movie, listening. Both of my cats were laying on me, given now they were even somewhat earlier too, awake and heads looking where I was. The hallway. The hallway sat right by the basement stairs, came off right from the living room, leading down to the bedrooms and bathrooms and the rest of the house. So from where I was sitting, I could see the basement stairs, the hallway opening, and the entire front room. This includes the kitchen, the giant glass doors to the back porch, the door to the garage, and the front door. Our main room is very open. After I heard the thumping, I got extremely paranoid and grabbed my phone. I even grabbed my car keys and put my shoes on. That's what I get for watching scary movies alone though. I was way too paranoid. I turned on pretty much every light in the house and went back to my parents' bedroom first to look around. That's when things started to get weird. In my house, we have two entrances into the attic, and neither of the entrance holes have an easy way to get into them because my dad was way too lazy to add ladders to them. In retrospect, I'm thankful for that. The first thing I checked in my parents' room was the closet. It was a broken door that locked you in if you shut the door behind you while you were inside. So I got a little key off of the door frame and opened the door, so if it accidentally shut behind me, I could get out. The other thing about the closet was that it had the entrance to the attic in the ceiling. When I looked up at the crawl hole, the square of plaster that acted as the cover was halfway off and pieces of dried up plaster were on the ground. Someone had moved it and broken off pieces in the process. I must have stared for a good 30 seconds before I walked out of the closet slowly and made sure I closed it tightly and started making my way back to the kitchen. I stopped and listened. At this point, I could hear the thumping noises in the attic loud and clear because my movie was paused. And I don't think I've ever walked and breathed so quietly in my life. I felt my head swimming still, and I heard the thumping above the living room going towards the garage. That's where the other opening was, so I quickly tiptoed to the garage door, unlocked the handle and the deadbolt from the inside. I felt like I was going to vomit at this point. I foggily decided I wouldn't call anyone from inside the house in case the person heard me, so I was quietly praying to anything that whoever the person was couldn't get inside the main part of the house until I left. I took a few seconds to gather everything. I even thought I heard the basement stairs creaking. I was so freaked out. I didn't waste any time. I grabbed my two cats who were scared themselves and stumbling, threw a coat on, pretty much stumbling myself outside into the cold. Once outside, I instantly felt my headache lift and I heaved in the cold air as it burned my lungs, feeling my grogginess fade. I put my two cats in the car and drove slightly down the street to my neighbor's house. I remembered to put the heat on for my fur babies since it was 3 degrees outside that night. Luckily, it wasn't raining or snowing. I sat with my neighbor and I called my parents and the cops, who both showed up at about the same time. My mom sat with me across the street while the cops searched the house from top to bottom. It was about 15 minutes later when they told us there was no one in the house anymore. The door leading to the backyard from the garage was wide open, and the attic access panel in the garage was also open. They had apparently found foot and handprints all over the attic, as if someone or something had been on all fours, crawling through the attic. And as if it couldn't get any worse, the entire attic had been doused in gasoline. The rain I had thought I heard earlier that night. It was in fact not rain, but someone pouring a watering can full of gasoline onto the attic floor. From what the police said, they practically almost killed themselves trying to light our house on fire. They apparently had an accountant for not having ventilation from the fumes and started stumbling and crawling when they couldn't walk straight anymore. I felt a little better knowing that they got instant karma. Apparently, it even looked like they fell the 10 feet from the ceiling opening to the concrete floor in the garage because there was a tiny bit of blood on the ground and on the back of the door handle. Weirdly enough, I felt even better after hearing that he got hurt. The police had gave me a statement and were talking to us about how the cleanup was going to go for our house when another officer came over. He asked if I had been in my basement at all. I said no. He said that the door under the stairs was open and that there was a gasoline canteen down there as well, but there was no one there. I was pretty much stunned. He didn't say it, but there was 2 people in my house that night. One in the basement that I walked right past at least twice, and one in the attic. I don't know how the second one got out. They didn't say it or they didn't know, but there were 2 people in my house. I had heard those basement stairs creaking as I left. They were probably so close and thankful I never even took a moment to look back. We stayed at my grandma's house for a while so that the gasoline was being cleaned and locks were put on our attic hatches. But nothing was really the same after that. I don't like being home alone anymore, especially not at night. And even after a long time, I don't think I will ever go in that attic again.